We have probably all seen an animal such as a dog respond to verbal commands, often with astounding subtlety and understanding. Yet if we deal with such animals enough, eventually we sense their frustration at an inability to communicate back in the same fashion, as the words they might understand simply cannot be formed by their palate. Thus it is that language and our ability to effectively communicate marks us as distinct. Even those who faced almost insurmountable barriers between themselves and the rest of the world, like Helen Keller, can still at times manage to find a way to communicate effectively. Language helped man to create societies where general understanding, responsibility, and complex social systems became possible in a way that is very far from instinctual if we consider the breadth and depth of human organization across cultures. Hi, I'm Mark Armini. My friend David Carrero asked me to talk with you about the importance of instilling the love of reading in children. Now, there's a lot of ways I could approach this, and there's a whole lot of things I could say. Not all of these things are going to be true for everyone, but I do think that there is something important that you can gain from reading to just about any child. Depending on how young they are, one of the things that's so neat about reading to a child is that it instantly gives you a connection. So if you have a young child and you're like, okay, what are we going to do together? Reading is a wonderful way to get to kind of do something together that you can both be really invested in, that's also going to give them a learning tool. You know, you can teach them a whole lot of things that way, and that way you can also kind of, if you've read the book in advance, know exactly what they're going to be introduced to, and then talk about that intelligently as you read to them. Another thing that's pretty important is that as human beings, right, when we get to know someone, one of the ways that we do that is through the stories that we tell. You know, when you meet someone out on a date or you know, meet a new friend, you're actually telling stories about each other. There's something universal about the way that humans communicate, and kind of, besides just increasing your vocabulary, right, introducing you to new situations that you've never thought about before. Emily Dickinson said there's no frigate like a book to take you to wonderful places, you know, out there beyond your normal experience. So a lot of reading teaches children empathy for situations beyond their own actual condition. So, you know, you're sitting there and you're reading, and you can talk about things that can challenge them as well as they get a little bit older. So it gives you a connection with the child. It also allows them to develop in ways that maybe you've never even thought of when you give them that freedom and that liberty as they get a little older to explore those worlds. And it doesn't necessarily have to be fiction. In the past, right, you had no television, right? No phones, no video games to play. So it was more accepted that more people were going to read just to fill those empty hours. But now that we have all these things, the neat thing about reading is that it's an active, engaging experience. These children, when they're reading, are doing something besides just passively sitting there. So even if it's nonfiction, even if it's, you know, historical, or even if it's some religious document, depending on your faith, right? All of these things, when you read them, actually engage that child in a way that is a little bit more inclusive than them just sitting there watching TV or playing a video game, and you can be involved in that particular activity. So, in addition to all these things, as they go through school, right? What is the one thing that all these classes have in common? Whether it's an e-book or a physical book, you go to the bookstore and you pick up a textbook to learn something. So there's something universal about just being comfortable with bringing in new knowledge through this venue. When there's not a teacher that you can ask, when there's not someone who's knowledgeable about it, you can do that research on your own. So, in conclusion here, there are so many analytical, critical faculties, vocabulary that can be developed through reading. And if you encourage that activeness, all knowledge is ultimately self-knowledge, right? That's what I honestly believe. So when these kids read, they're there, they're experiencing these words, they're thinking about them, they're actively engaged in it, and it teaches them something about themselves as well. What would they do? How would they react to these situations? And it's a wonderful way to just be involved with your children. So please foster encouraging environment for children to read and encourage them also to develop those kind of empathetic connections with situations that possibly they've never encountered in real life. Reading not only does the things which I set forth in this video rather more rapidly than what I've liked, but it also puts us in touch with a tradition which risks being lost. All humans breathe the same air, grow as old as they can, and face death and loss eventually. Against the passage of time, we create art that we hope will carry our name into eternity. Reading is a way to connect to that history and learn about those who came before, and why humanity has progressed as it has, and what it has valued over time. While many things are lost, we're in a unique position to see the vast panoply of human progress with quick and easy access to such art and documents at the touch of a few buttons. As readers become more sophisticated, hopefully they'll branch out into the more antiquated and specialized manuscripts, histories, and poems available to us. John Keats, in his glorious Ode on a Grecian Urn, was taken aback by the beauty found on an urn commemorating a civilization long gone, wondering what figures and what myths played across its somehow immortal surface. Even though the people who made it had been lost, their art and the words Keats devised to commemorate the image live on. He concluded, "When old age shall this generation waste, thou shalt remain in midst of other woe than ours, a friend to man to whom thou sayest, beauty is truth, truth beauty. That's all ye know on earth, and all ye need to know."